Okay, well, let's call the meeting to order. This is May 14th, 2020, meeting of the AMATS Technical Advisory Committee. And we're going to ask Mr. Lyon to do a roll call, please.
Hey, Mr. Van Hove? Present. Mr. Stitchick? Ms. Kilcoyne?
Present.
Mr. Lindemood? Ms. Acton?
Present.
Ms. McNulty?
Present.
Mr. Linnell?
Present.
Mr. Rebuffo is excused. Mr. Colhays? Present. Mr. Alini? And Mr. Krabs?
That's present.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 members present. We have
Okay, so if someone comes in later, just let the record show we have 7 members join the meeting. So we have a quorum, correct?
Yes.
Okay. We're getting a little feedback. So if you aren't speaking at the time, could you please mute your mic so we don't get feedback? I'm not sure where that's coming from, but thank you. Craig, can you please do the public involvement announcement, please?
You bet. So AMATS committee meetings are open to the public, and the public is provided an opportunity to comment at each meeting. Business items are presented by staff or consultant, and then the public will be invited to comment. In this case, AMATS posted notice of this meeting a week ago on Thursday, May 7th, which included instructions to the public for how to comment on agenda items. We're using the same kind of system that the Anchorage Assembly is using, in which we ask members of the public to email us. In this case, we asked them to email us by 6:30 p.m. yesterday with their name, phone number, and requested agenda item or items to speak to. We did not actually receive any requests to speak, but the public is also able to follow these proceedings of today's meeting via Teams Live. 2 other things to mention, just to remind everyone that this chat is public record. We will have it available, so make sure, just be aware of that as well. And then again, as Mr. Krabs said, I will ask anybody speaking to keep your audio on mute in order to minimize feedback and echoing, and to make sure when you do have a comment or a question, to make sure announce your name before speaking so we know who is saying what.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. So we're on to approval of the agenda. Do we have an approval of the agenda?
This time, Van Hove, I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you.
Janet Kilcoyne, second.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any changes that we want on the agenda? Okay, if there are no objections, then we're going to adopt the agenda.
Hey, Mr. Krabs, Mr.
Yes.
Chair?
Mm-hmm.
I will note that I see Mr. Stitchick has arrived.
Okay.
Let's just say it's 2:36 that he arrived.
Thank you. So we're on approval of the agenda. Are there any objections to approval of the agenda? Okay, hearing none, then that's approved.
Mr. Chair, I also note that Mr. Lindemood has arrived.
Thank you. Okay, we are on to item 5, which is the action item. Oh, I'm sorry. We have no minutes to approve. We still have a few sets at the next meeting for adoption, so at this time, no minutes to approve. And we're moving on to 5A, which Mr. Craig Lane is going to present.
Yeah, so folks, you should have your agenda packet that you received electronically a week ago, and you can see the agenda page up on the screen. Mr. Chair, if you could select the memo, there we go. So the TIP major amendment, this is the reason why we need a meeting today. We have several changes that are needed, and those changes are of a nature that they require an amendment as opposed to administrative modification. Whenever you are adding or deleting projects, it's required to be an amendment as opposed to administrative modification. And so we have a couple of things in that realm that we need to do. So I'm going to go through the memo that we have here and go through it in detail. I hadn't planned on going through the tip tables themselves because they all should be reflected in the amendment here. And again, the request is for the TAC to recommend to the policy committee for a 30-day public release. After we do that public release, then the tip amendment would need to go through the Anchorage Assembly. So there is a process ahead of us, but we need to start with a 30-day public review. So I'm just going to read through the memo, and folks can follow along if you want. So the major amendment is needed to update the Table 2, the roadway, the non-motorized, CMAC, the TAP funds, the pavement replacement, transit, and deletion of Table 12. Table 12, if folks remember, is the listing of projects that are inside the municipality of Anchorage that are outside the AMATS boundaries. So that is anything south of Potter Marsh. And it's been in there for a long time. We had the discussion with FHWA whether we needed to continue to have that table in there, even though it has outside the AMATS boundaries, and they agreed they were fine with us taking it out of the tip tables. And it's just so it's extra work to add it in there, and it just can be a little confusing when people ask why are we doing whatever inside table in that last table. So we're recommending the deletion of that. So, and then we have a slight reduction in the overall STIP funding and CMAC funding for AMATS in 21 and 22 based on the recently approved statewide transportation improvement program. So we need to reflect that in this major amendment as well. So specifically in Table 2, the roadway section, the main thing that we're doing is adding the Academy Drive and Vanguard Drive Area Traffic Circulation Improvements Project in 2021. We have some changes in the document that allow us to capture the amount of funding that we need, at least $3 million for design in 2021. And so we're able to do that without having to move too much money around in the table. So that's the main thing we're doing. We have a little bit different in the amount of money that we're advanced constructing for the O'Malley Road reconstruction project. We are not ready for the Fireweed Lane rehabilitation design funds, I believe it is, in 2021. Sorry, that's a right-of-way phase. We're not quite ready for that phase to occur, and so that $2.5 million in Fireweed Lane was available. I'm just trying to look in real quickly here to make sure I don't miss anything. A little bit of changes in the East 4th Avenue signal and lighting upgrade project. Basically, we're able to balance these monies around and add in the Academy Drive Vanguard project. So that's the main thing we're doing in there. I guess it makes sense that we go through the rest of this and then we can come back to the different parts of here if we had questions on it. That's what you'd like to do, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Okay, so we can go to the next page of the memo now. You see at the top there, if you're looking at the top of page 2 of the memo, the Mountaineer Drive project was originally listed, and it is still listed, I think, in the previous MTP, but it's listed in the TIP originally as Rabbit Creek Road to East 164th Avenue. And early scoping meetings of that project, we realized that it made more sense to come to the Sandpiper Drive. That's kind of in existence right now. There's a little stub out from that already. And 164th is much farther south, and there are a lot of other challenges in there, and it just made sense to go to Sandpiper. Changing the termini of a project is a major amendment. It's not an administrative modification. So this is another reason why we need to change that. So Sandpiper Drive made more sense. Same thing with East 4th Avenue signal and lighting upgrade. It was originally looked at from A Street to Ingram Street, and the project managers told us they're really going to need to do it from Cordova instead of A Street. So we have to change the termini of that as well. On Table 3, the non-motorized projects, we have some cost estimates that we're upgrading. for some of those projects in there. That's really all we're doing in Table 3. Scrolling down just a little bit on Table 5, the CMAC projects. Transit, the Public Transportation Department has had the project in there a long time, the bus stop and facility improvements, and that project is still going to remain there. They originally had language in there that added the operations funding in there for the project, so that they would so that they could have that new project. To find my notes here. Apologize. Just a moment. So they originally had the demo operations project listed kind of in conjunction with the original bus stop and facility improvements project. This is a need. There's a need to split those two projects out. So there will continue to be this project that we've had for a long time, which is basically a replacement bus project that's been in the tip since I've been here. It'll be now changed to say capital vehicles, and then we'll have a new project underneath that called the demo operations expansion, which is that operational assistance. That is something we can do using federal funds, I believe, for 3 years, and after that, someone else will have to pick up the cost of that content. So that's why we're splitting it out to the two new projects. So that's what we are doing in Table 5. In Table 6, these are TAP funds, just moving, updating project costs for the Chugach Foothills Connector project. That's the main thing there. And then the pavement replacement projects, that's Table 7, we have just basically updating what we have as the potential projects in here. You'll see right now it shows one roadway project, which is changing the Termini, that fire mediation project, and then a bunch of new pathway and trail projects. I will tell you that I did receive an updated list of projects from DOT for this, and I just forgot to add them in. So that is, I have a list of those projects that we're going to add in while we're in this public comment period. But I will share those when I can. I think besides the deletion, so there is also some minor updates in Table 10. You'll see that, some dollar figure updates, and then the deletion of Table 12. So that's a very fast version of everything that we're planning on doing in this TIP update, and we're asking for you to release it for 30 days. So there's that. We can, I'll give it back to you, Mr. Chair, and entertain questions.
Sure. So we'd like to have the committee members that have any questions on this. And I guess you can speak up and we'll see how that works, or you can put into chat that you want to, or that you have questions on this. So we'll see how this goes. Anybody in the committee have any questions on this? Okay. So the public was invited to comment by notifying us of their desire to comment on this item, but we don't have any requests that were received. So at this time, I guess we would ask if any of the policy committee members that are on might have a question for Mr. Lyon on this item, or
You're calling on John Weddleton?
yes, go ahead, Mr. Welton.
All right, thank you. You know, I have to think about this Table 12 deletion, and as Rep for South Anchorage, that has projects that are for that area, and it might be fine as long as it's really clear where I can look at it and my constituents. I mean, obviously those are big projects that are concerned for people of Anchorage. And appreciate the inclusion of Academy and Vanguard in this. Why did pathway along Brayton Drive south at Yarmouth yet, believe it.
So, two things. One, I just will say that Table 12, those projects are still in the STIP, so they will be able to be seen, tracked, their progress tracked in the STIP. I don't know how easy that is to track down, but that's how you'll be able to do it from now on. As for the old Seward Highway pathway, my understanding is when the DOT took a look at that, they kind of looked at the costs and everything, and it seemed to be cost prohibitive. But I don't know if Mr. Evanson or Mr. Starzak or Mr. Van Hove has a thought on that, maybe even Mr. Linnell, but that was what we received as information that it seemed to be cost prohibitive with the amount of money that's typically available in the AMATS non-motorized funding.
Through the chair, I'll take a crack at providing some additional information if you'd care for it.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Evanson.
Thank you, Mr. Emerson.
Specifically, the segment of Old Seward Highway in question does not have enough remaining room in it to fit a pathway within the existing right-of-way. That segment was widened about 10 to 15 years ago by the DOT. So we've already recently, in recent memory, if you will, went through there and bought right-of-way. There isn't additional right-of-way available for a pathway, so we would end up having to go back through, relocate utilities that were moved as part of that previous project, and in the relocating of those utilities and moving stuff back for a pathway, we would be having to buy right-of-way from adjacent property owners that had already had most of their backyard, if you will, acquired by us during the last project. And so not only is it cost prohibitive, but it would also be a pathway project that would require us to go buy right-of-way. And DOT policy is we don't use eminent domain for a pathway-only project. And we fully expect that we would not be able to proceed with this project without the ability to use eminent domain. So it's very expensive outside of the existing right-of-way, and we don't think we could complete the project because of the challenges on the right-of-way that we would have to be acquiring from the adjacent property owners. At the end of the day, the three strikes are why we recommend it get pulled out.
Okay, can I follow up?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So, Jim, thank you for that. At what stage in the public process is that project?
At this point, it isn't an active project. It was put onto the list, and we were doing a preliminary internal scoping. And as a result of that internal scoping is why we, the DOT, came back with the recommendation that that particular pathway be pushed back out until it can be included in a full reconstruction project that includes additional work on the Old Seward Highway.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So it's not getting canceled, it's just going to need to wait until it's included as part of a reconstruction project.
Okay, I wanted to gauge if the community has high expectations for that. I know I've gotten requests for it, but if it's not through the process that people expect, put it into it. Appreciate that. I'm done.
Oh, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mr. Weddleton. All right, is there anyone else from the policy committee online that would that has any questions?
This is Chris Schutte from the policy committee. I don't have any questions, but thanks for asking.
Okay. Okay, then what is the will of the committee on this 5A then?
This is Michelle. I move to approve. This is Jamie Acton. I second.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Anybody want to have a discussion on the item before we take a vote?
Mr. Chair, this is Craig. Just want to clarify what we're asking is for the TAC to recommend to the policy committee to release for a 30-day public review.
Okay.
This is Tom Van Hove to adjust the original book. I will move to recommend release of the 2019-2022 TIP Major Amendment 1 to the policy committee for public.
This is Michelle, second. Thank you for your clarification.
Okay, so just so we all understand, we're just clarifying the motion to approve in the second on 5A.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, so does anybody have any comments or discussions on this item? Okay, in that case, do any of the committee members, do we have any objections to approving the motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved. Okay, Craig, do we have any other action items?
We do not.
Okay. Then I believe we are on to item 6, which is an update to the 2040 MTP. Craig, are you going to present this?
I believe we are sending this to Ms. Underwood to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me? This is Vivian Underwood.
Yes.
Oh, thanks. Just for the record, I'm Vivian Underwood with AMATS. And I'm just giving a schedule update for you. We've been working on the comments that we received after the comment period closed on March 9th. And we received additional comments from a separate review we did with environmental and cultural consultation that closed on March 19. So that was right after COVID-19 hit, and it took us a while to adjust to working from home. That's been good, but I have to tell you that we had a lot of comments for people wanting to make changes to either to add them or delete them, or change the time frame or the cost estimates. And any one of those would be a significant change that would require additional public review and comment. So, in the spirit of wanting to keep this project from derailing before our hard deadline on November 19, staff is going to recommend that we not make any of those changes, any changes that would cause us to have to go back out for public review and comment. Of course, that will be up to the policy committee to make that call. So that's where we are, and we want to have a work session with the AMATS, TAC, and policy committees sometime in the last week of May. We may need more than one, but that's our goal. And then our goal is to get this to committees in June for request for approval. And then to make edits that are requested by the policy committee, and then make those edits, and then we'll send it to FHWA for their approval of the air quality conformity determination.
Okay, thank you, Vivian. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee members on this item? Okay, any comments or questions from anyone else that's online right now? That's what this. Okay, I think that takes us to agenda item 7, general information. Craig, are you going to introduce this, please?
So this is the Eagle River Bridge project update, and I'm going to start with, hopefully Shannon McCarthy is on the line and ready to present. I'm not sure which of the folks that are there are the ones who are going to be sharing their screen with their PowerPoint.
Hi, this is Laura Landau from HDR. I'm supporting DOT in their presentation today. We will have Shannon McCarthy start off. I will be screen sharing. Paul Witt will also be presenting, and then Dan Peterson as well. So I know that Shannon and Paul and I are all on, and we're still waiting for one more person to join. Will we wait 2 minutes, or do you want us to just go ahead and get started?
Please go ahead and get started.
Okay, we will do that. I'll go ahead and share now.
Laura, this is Dan Peterson. I'm on the phone just trying to get onto the WebEx, so I'll be able to speak when it's my turn. Hopefully I'm able to hear.
Okay. Okay, great. We've got everybody, and I'll start screen sharing the PowerPoint.
We're just gonna give away all my secrets.
Okay, give me a second.
There we go. That one more.
Nope. Give me 1 second. I'll bring it right back up. Technical difficulties here. Okay, how is that working?
That is beautiful.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everyone. My name is Shannon McCarthy, and I am DOT's Communication Officer for Central Region. And I wanted to thank you for letting us come and speak with you today. This is a huge project, and it's one of the most highly visible projects that we have. Obviously, we have an incredibly high AEDT on the Glen Highway, and the public gets to see what our progress is every day. So pretty important. As Aura mentioned, we have Dan Peterson, Construction Manager with Kiewit, online, and Paul Witt, HDR Project Manager, who's assisting DOT. And then also available today is Tal Maxwell online, Aura?
I don't know if this.
Okay, so if he's joining, this probably will be audio only, but he's our project engineer, and he should be online to answer technical questions. And if we can't answer anything, of course, we'll just write that question down and make sure we get back to you about that. We're going to show you kind of what a snapshot of what the project will look like once it's complete, and then we're going to talk about what the construction we're doing this summer and why. If you have any questions, just put them into the chat. I will go ahead and I think we'll all try to answer those as soon as the presentation is over. So with that, or if you want to go to the next slide. Carzilla is coming. I'm sure you guys have noticed that we did a little bit of a different style and branding for this project that beyond what we typically do. We decided to go this route for a couple of reasons. First of all, an acknowledgement that it's a huge impact to the public. I already mentioned the AEDTs on the Glen Highway. Obviously, we wanted to acknowledge that we understand and recognize that this is an inconvenience to the public. But we also wanted to have a little bit of fun, and I think the public has been really receptive. They've kind of enjoyed some of the graphics we used, and that we're acknowledging it's a big impact to them. So with that, as most of you know, our traffic counts are down. I just checked with data today, and they're saying that our traffic counts are down about 25% in the month of May so far, but those are coming up every day. We're seeing a little bit of an increase, and we do expect that by the time we're up and running and kind of closer to full capacity, we will have congestion, we will have delay. So it's important for us to get the word out, and obviously people have heard of Carzilla, and that's what we want. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Witt.
Thanks, Shannon. I'm Paul Witt. I'm with HDR, and we've been working with the DOT in the project through the first phase where the northbound was completed. We worked with them through the concept, the preliminary design. We assisted in selecting Kiewit as the design builder on the project, and we're assisting them now as construction management. What you see right here is the diagram of the completed project. The main focus of this is to build the southbound lanes now, to take them from 2 lanes to 3 with the ability to build 4 in both directions. Both the design for the north and the southbound are designed to be built for 3 bridges, and they have the pier caps so that girders can be added to the other 4th lane later. Along with that, what we're doing is going to have a frontage road to the west side of the project will be added. Going to reduce the grades on the hill. The profile is going to be a mirror of the northbound that was built previously. Basically, we have better horizontal and vertical alignments here, and the ramps will be set up so that the southbound ramp from Eagle River will basically have its own lane that will extend, and that's where the lane will be added. In addition, all the bridges will be built to the latest seismic standards, and it was able to, you remember a number of years ago, the Artillery Road Bridge was damaged severely by a truck, and it took a bit of time to get the girders made and the hardware, and also so that we didn't have to close down the Glen Highway more than necessary. That bridge will be repaired during this time, and it actually is under repair right now. Next slide. We really don't have time to go through this today. We have a very nice animation that was used, actually the engineering drawings, to show the project. It has how phase 1 was constructed. It'll do a fly through of phase 2, and it also shows the detour and how that works. So if you have a chance, our website is eagleriverbridgeak.com. Next slide. This slide just kind of shows the difference between the work. The green line is what we're constructing this summer. You see that we're moving the southbound in closer to the existing northbound. The old southbound highway will become a frontage road. And next slide. As I mentioned previously, this is the Artillery Road Bridge. It shows the girder that's been removed, and proves it's actually a separate contract in Keywood, and Keywood and Proofs are working very well together. They're coordinating all their traffic control. Next slide. And I'm going to turn it over to Dan from the project manager from Keywood. He's going to basically take you through what's going on right now.
Thanks, Paul. This is Dan Peterson with USI Qualified Project Manager. Want to give you guys a quick update on our current schedule, what we're working on, and what it's going to look like the rest of the summer here, and then maybe highlight a couple of these photos you see on the screen here. So currently we're forming up our last pier cap that we need to pour. We'll pour that here next week, Monday. And then also next week, Wednesday, we'll pour our first abundant peak there on the south side of the bridge. Currently working on the excavation required for the MSD wall on the north side of the river. So that will excavation going on right now. Plan to form 4 strips, those leveling slabs, towards the later part of next week. And then right after Memorial Weekend, we'll start working on setting MSD panels and starting to construct the wall there. Now on June 15th, right around that time frame, we should have enough of the wall built up that we're able to tie Eagle View Drive into the existing southbound bridge. So the current or existing southbound Glen Highway Bridge, that's going to become the Eagle View Drive Bridge frontage road right there. So starting on June 15th, we should have that tied in, paved. That will allow traffic coming out of Eagle River to go over the Artillery Bridge and to take a left on the Eagle View Drive, that frontage road, and then we're going to provide a temporary on-ramp. So be able to eliminate that detour traffic that will come through Eagle River. Again, right now we're on track for that to happen about June 15th. Also, right around that same time frame, between June 15th and July 15th, we'll be setting our 44 girders. And then after that, really we're on track to put traffic onto the new bridge the 1st of September. And then there's going to be 2 to 3 weeks worth of taking the kind of that head-to-head configuration off the northbound, pulling that barrier back off, restriping that, returning the northbound lane back to the original configuration towards the later part of September. Now, to kind of highlight on these pictures here on the screen, there on the that left picture, that's us pouring pier cap number 2. That involved us putting over 1 million pounds of concrete, pouring that all at one time into that pier cap. Then there's the picture on the right, that's set in one of the upper column rebar cages. And all of the columns average about 50 feet in height. Go ahead and click on to the next slide, please. Okay, so that's a picture of Pier Cap 2 and the formwork that's involved with putting that all together. Again, 1 million pounds of concrete, that's about 220 cubic yards of concrete in that pour itself. We go ahead and go to the next slide. This next slide, it really highlights the temporary engineering and kind of construction device that goes into constructing these projects. You know, we get these plans, these drawings, what the permanent structures are supposed to look like, but there's quite a bit of engineering we do just in order to construct it. And so what you're seeing here is us setting our false work frame down onto the steel legs that we attach to the concrete columns. When we set that frame down, we're able to finish putting panels down and then form up those pier caps. And then once we get all done forming the pier caps and it's seared, we're able to simply lower that frame down to the ground and strip that all out. Next slide, please. And then the last thing, I guess, just to quickly hit on here, this last weekend, Saturday morning, we were able to do our big traffic swap. So that's where we took the southbound and was able to detour them over to share the same structural pavement section as northbound. And so there on the left, that picture is showing how we have the concrete barrier dividing the two different directions of traffic, providing a 2 lanes in both directions. Maintain the 12-foot wide lane width that we're out there already. But in order to be able to fit everything in there, those shoulders went down to 1.5 foot shoulders. So that's a pretty good picture and some updates of the job. With that, we can go to the next slide and probably turn it back over to Paul here.
Thanks, Dan. And Dan mentioned last Saturday they did the head-to-head lane shifts that went extremely well. A lot of it was because the traffic was down and he scheduled it on the weekend so people got used to it. But even during the week, we haven't seen any backups during rush hour. And I think part of the reason is because we have the better grades on there already. And the people don't seem to be hitting their brakes as very much as they're going into the temporary lane configuration on the head-to-head. This is showing our traffic impacts, kind of the detour plans through construction. And we mentioned that the ramp southbound from Artillery Road has been closed. We show a detour goes around through Eagle River Loop Road and then back over to over by the dump at Highland. Both lanes here, as we mentioned, are now rerouted. That's the yellow onto the single location there. It's divided by concrete, as Dan said. The Eagle View Drive, which will be our southbound frontage road, that will never be closed to any of the residences on that road right now. And as Dan mentioned there, it's not really shown on here because we're gonna do another diagram as we get closer to that, but where it says current southbound lanes closed, that'll be opening up sometime around mid-June for one lane traffic, then as a frontage road, and we'll have the ramp coming off there where people can access the southbound Glen again, or they can actually go up through there to the dump, correct, Dan? I believe that's right. Next slide, please. So the DOT and the team will be continuing their Carzilla campaign. That's just to really keep people aware of, we do have these lane restrictions here. there are going to be traffic changes coming through this summer, particularly in June. The head-to-head is, like I said previously, is going to continue through September. And we've been talking to the police and the fire people. They're well aware of the lack of shoulders here, and they're fully committed if we have any breakdowns through the traffic area to immediately respond to that. The one thing we're going to continue to mention to the public is just keep aware the speed limit has been reduced to 45 miles an hour through here just for safety of the public and the construction workers as well. Next slide. And this is actually a screenshot from the video of the project we have on our website, but it really shows pretty well what the final roadway is going to look like. You see the dual bridge north and southbound there, right adjacent to each other. And the bridge you see in the foreground is the southbound bridge. And right now, Dan and his crew are building the Eagle View Drive to meet that, as you see on the left side of the screen. The real key why we haven't closed down the old southbound is, you see the difference in elevation is in excess of 30 feet. And Dan is going to be, and his crew are going to be building that MSC retaining wall, and that's what's going to be needed for the foundation of the bridge. Next slide.
Hey, Paul, I guess one thing I'd like to add in that slide back there, you know, the way these bridges are constructed, they're mirror images of each other, the northbound and the southbound that we're currently constructing. One of the things that we're doing is that those bridges, the pier caps themselves are built wider than necessarily needed right now. So meaning that in between the two bridges, the columns and the pier caps and all the engineering is designed to allow for simply adding an additional girder onto those pier caps for future widening and the future additional length there.
And that's a good point, Dan. The whole project is designed for the long-term planning so that those lanes can be not only added to the bridge, but the room is between the highways to add a lane on to both north and south. Next slide, please. This is just a representation of side view what the bridge is going to look like, the piers and pier caps. Interesting that the drill shafts on the piers in the river and then the abutments are on piling. Next slide. Talked about the real benefit of the project. Grades were reduced pretty significantly and the curvature is better. Next slide. And just to reiterate, we are going to have that frontage road. The frontage road, as it shows here, the blue lines, it's two directional frontage road as far as the extent of where the road is right now. And then it's one lane southbound until Highland. The reason for that is to have a two-lane frontage road there, we would have had to add to the interchange. We don't have enough right-of-way. We're right up against the military base there. So the decision was made to have that as one lane from the existing road south. Next slide, and we're going to turn this back to Shannon.
Thank you. Sorry, it took me a little bit to find my mute button to unmute that. As I mentioned earlier, it's really important for us to get the word out, especially now that people are starting to come back to their offices, and we don't want to surprise people with this construction. So we've been working the outreach pretty hard. We're present on social media, and we've sent household and business mailers out to about 15,000 addresses in Eagle River. We've garnered some enterprise news coverage, which has been great. Also doing radio, print, and digital advertising. And we're even trying some of the streaming sources, Spotify, which is new for us. And then, of course, this visual presentations. Like today, we obviously wanted them to be in person, but we're doing the best we can. And then We also have online resources for the public. Eagle River Bridge AK.com is our clearinghouse of information for the project. Paul had mentioned that we have that animation on there. It's great to look at. So I encourage everyone to go there. It unfortunately doesn't translate as well on these visual presentations. There's not enough bandwidth to show it. But that being said, it is there, and there's lots of other good information. We have updated Q&As and all that. Of course, all of our construction information is at alaskanavigator.org. And then the same folks who update our alaskanavigator.org also update 511 for us with construction information. So that's another good source of information if you want to look at road conditions and construction information at the same time. It's just not quite as detailed as Alaska Navigator is. So with that, you can also contact the project. We have a project hotline that is monitored by project staff. You can leave a message 24/7, and then when they have an opportunity, they can check that, and they check that every day. And they will get back to you. And then, of course, Tal Maxwell is our project engineer for the state, and that's tal.maxwell@alaska.gov. And you're welcome to submit questions to him as well. And with that, we open it up for questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee members? Okay, does anybody else in the meeting have any questions or comments on this presentation? Okay, well, thank you very much for the presentation. And okay, so I believe we are on. Is somebody wanting to ask a question? Okay, we're on to agenda item 7B then, the Vision Zero update. Craig, do you want to present or?
I am going to throw this to, I believe, Holly Spiltorres or Ann Rooms with the project with Vision Zero. We see the screen. Let's see who's going to share.
We may have somebody on mute.
Yes, and there we go. There's Holly. Okay.
Yeah.
Good way.
Sorry, when I shared my screen, my mute button went away, and then I was confused. But I'm here now, and I'm gonna show. Can you see me now too?
We can see your screen, and I can see you up above. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So thank you for having me here today. I know you're scheduled until 4:30, so I'm gonna take the next 70 minutes to talk about Vision Zero. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm with Huddle AK. I'm a community engagement and landscape architecture firm. I'm working with Kittleson and Associates on this project. And I have Andrew Owens with me he's on the call today too if we have any technical questions from the team. So here we are talking about Anchorage Vision Zero, safer streets for everyone. Okay. So there's going to be two parts of this presentation today. The first part, we're going to talk about data from 2018. I know that a lot of you on this call have heard this presentation on Vision Zero before. We do have data compiled for 2018 that we're going to present today. And the second part of the presentation, we're going to talk about the Vision Zero program in the municipality of Anchorage and what we've been working on for the past year. So I want you to reflect a little bit and think about who do you know that was involved in a crash this past year? I kind of have a feeling everyone on the call has had an experience with someone who's been in a crash. In the past 4 years, over 17,000 people have been involved in a crash. You can see the slide has it divided into no injury, minor injury, severe injury, and fatality. Fatalities, unfortunately, are trending up. On the average, 2 people per month are dying. About 10 people per month are seriously injured. So 2018 in review. You might wonder why we're not getting to 2019 data. The amount of data that needs to be crunched in order to analyze our network, it's a lot. The 2019 data won't be available until June of 2020. So what we have in front of us right now is the 2018 data. Car crashes. 319 drivers and passengers per month that is, experienced a crash on average in 2018. 11 people died. Pedestrians. 12 people per month were hit. 9 people died. Biking. 8 people per month were hit. Good news is, for 4 years, 2015 through 2018, there were 0 fatalities for people biking. Motorcycles. There's 79 crashes in the few months that they ride. So we all know motorcycles aren't on the road as much as cars are all year. 79 crashes, 4 people died. So one of the big takeaways for me with Vision Zero, and I like to articulate this to a lot of people, is that when we have a transportation system that is built for and many times prioritizes our most vulnerable users, it's safer for all of us. So what you see with the data is that vulnerable users in our city are overrepresented when it comes to injuries and fatalities. There's far fewer vulnerable users on our roads, but they're impacted the most by crashes. So what you see here is that 6% of pedestrians that were hit by a car died, and almost 80% were injured. Only almost 90% of bicyclists were injured, and almost 88% of motorcyclists were injured, 5% died. So I went back and I calculated the numbers for people in cars, and how that equates is less than 5% of people who drive likely are injured. So there's more drivers, more vulnerable users more. So I just want us to remember that with Vision Zero as a citywide change in our transportation culture, that if we focus on our most vulnerable users for all, even people who are in cars, will be safe in the long run. Okay. So mostly it's our behavior, it's our decisions that contribute to fatalities and serious injuries. The data that you see in front of you is from police reports and also from people who have self-reported incidents. The point of this slide is that it's our behavior, and it's our behavior here in Anchorage, but what you see on this slide reflects what's happening nationally. Distracted driving, improper crossings, although many times we think that improper crossing might not be reported correctly. You think about an officer at the scene of the crime, the scene of the crash, is that the officer is really focused on dealing with the emergency situation. And it's difficult to file an accurate report at that time. They're mostly focusing on who's safe. Based on national stats, distracted driving is primarily the reason we're seeing fatalities, injuries. Okay, moving on. On average, 1 crash per day was attributed to drugs and alcohol in Anchorage. 21% of fatalities in Anchorage were drug or alcohol related. 22% of severe injuries in Anchorage were drug or alcohol related. Marijuana. Testing for drug impairment is problematic due to limitations of drug detecting technology and the lack of agreed upon limit to determine impairment. So nationally, we're seeing that marijuana use is increasing, and 13% of nighttime and weekend drivers have marijuana in their system. So we think that marijuana use attributed to crashes is likely under. Okay, another thing the annual report does is it overlays crashes on the high injury network. So what you see in front of you, the yellow lines are the high injury network in Anchorage. For quick reference, the bright green is bicycle, red is pedestrian. The solid circles are a fatality, the open circles are a severe injury. An interesting thing to note is that you can see clusters throughout the system as it relates to color. Here's a cluster here that you can see a fatality, 2 serious injuries for pedestrians. Here's another cluster, clusters downtown. Total crashes within 200 feet of all high injury corridors is 45%. Total bike crashes within 200 feet of the bicycle injury network is 33%. Fatal and severe pedestrian crashes within 200 feet of the pedestrian injury network is 46%. So annually, we'll take the high injury network and overlay the injuries and fatalities on it to see how the data is tracking year to year. From my perspective as engineers and transportation planners, and people who are planning long-term for a transportation system, this information can be used to help prioritize projects across the system, to make sure we're focusing on the corridors that have the highest risk. So by tracking English Daily News, ATUU, certain news outlets, we're able to have an unofficial count for 2019. Unofficially, 15 fatalities, and unfortunately the first bike fatality in 4 years. However, from 2018, pedestrian fatalities look to be decreasing. Bicycle fatalities are increasing, and auto, whether it's drivers or passengers, injuries and fatalities are decreasing. So an unofficial look at 2019 shows a little bit of good news. Okay, so what is Anchorage doing? Anchorage has prioritized Vision Zero. Vision Zero is being implemented as a program. And what that means is that Anchorage is looking at Vision Zero and implementing it as a culture of safety throughout municipal organization, in addition to collaborating with our partners like DOT, Department of Health, and for the state. So it's about implementing this culture across multiple silos of government and community, focusing on 5 things. Human life and health are a priority. Traffic deaths and severe injuries are preventable. The roadway systems should be designed to protect us. We're humans, and we make mistakes. We're involved in crashes, but the roadway should be designed to protect us as much as it can. Speed is a critical factor, and then the responsibility is shared. We share this responsibility between designers and engineers and users. Okay, so where what has Anchorage done to implement the culture of Vision Zero? Vision Zero launched in 2016 with community-driven focus groups and a plan to launch. Then I believe it was a grant, I believe it was TAP funds that the municipality acquired to do an action plan in 2018. Then the State of Alaska Physical Activity and Nutrition Unit stepped up with some CDC funding for the next 4 years for Vision Zero implementation. 2019 was phase 1, and here we are in phase 2 of implementation. And again, this is with funding from the CDC through State of Alaska's Physical Activity and Nutrition section. So we're going to talk about some of the accomplishments in some of the next slides. So year 1 successes. Anchorage established a core internal team across all departments: transit, traffic, planning, parks, maintenance and operations. And they met quarterly to continue to implement the culture of Vision Zero across the city. Again, there was a multi-agency steering committee, so it was another group of people that spanned agencies internally and externally to implement Vision Zero. Dozens of community presentations, an intercept survey, annual report, traffic annual report was updated to reflect some Vision Zero themes, communication campaign, internal trainings to at the MOA, and then a demonstration project. Intercept survey was an interesting success. We deployed people out into the high injury network, and we contacted 153 people over the span of 2 weeks, and talked to people about their experience in the high injury network. Participants were walking for a variety of reasons. Mostly, they needed to get to work, and they needed to do their errands, and they needed to get health care. Most people chose their route because it was the shortest, it was near the bus stop, it was near places where they lived and places where they worked, obviously. However, this was all in the high injury network. The thing that I found the most interesting out of that survey, though, is that we asked people if they felt safe. The thing that was interesting to me is that I think we expected people to say that they felt unsafe, but the majority of the time they did say that they felt safe because within the system they would pick the safest route for them. However, we know that the high injury network is probably the least safest place for pedestrians and bicyclists to be. That is where they have to be. They have to be those places to get to their work, to get to the bus stop, to get to the job. So I wonder if it's a little bit of conditioning that people are being conditioned to be in a more dangerous place because they have to be there. Anyway, it was an interesting thing that came out of the survey for me. Another bit of data collection that happened, and Andrew did most of this. I might ask him to chime in on this. So we did pedestrian and bicycle counts on Minnesota Drive from West High to Spenard. 2 days in February when there were snow berms all over the place. 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Wednesday and 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday. 87% of the people used signalized crossings, and we counted 1,300 people on that Wednesday and 831 people on that Saturday. The data was collected using a combination of people in the streets counting, but also some cameras that counted. Andrew, do you want to add anything to this slide?
Yeah, we were pretty amazed by the level of activity out there. Just the drive had snow berms on the sidewalk for most of the lake south of Benson. Yet, as you can see from these photos, people are still using them. I also think the traffic, John, is providing the high quality video that makes data collection really efficient.
Thank you. I don't know, if somebody would have asked, if somebody would have wagered, how many people do you think would be on Minnesota Drive between West Mines and Bernard on February 26th? I don't think I would have picked 1,300 people. But this is going to be some data that will be important to use as Vision Zero continues to be implemented. Okay. You decide. This is part of the communications campaign, and I just want to leave you with some of the major takeaways. Crashes have real costs. Collisions are expensive. Just one fatality costs the agencies $1.6 million. When you factor in insurance increases, court costs, road repairs, disability payments, etc., it raises to $4.4 million just for one fatality. Think about police overtime, EMTs, court costs, road repairs, disability payments, all those things. It's a very costly thing for our system. I'm going to say something I know this is highly controversial, but I'm going to say it. A study conducted by Cambridge Systematics says that the cost of a crash is much higher than just dealing with congestion. The $164.2 billion cost for crashes equates to an annual person cost of $1,000, compared to if we invested $430 per person annually for congestion. These safety costs include medical, emergency, police, property damage, loss of productivity, quality of life, and other things. I understand that that's a very controversial thing to say, but that's the results of what one study has to say about the cost of dealing with our system or dealing with the after effects of a system that isn't as safe as it could. There's no one solution for Vision Zero. Everyone plays a role in making our streets safer. It's a challenging program to implement in government because in order to be successful, it needs to filter through all departments, all silos of government, parks, planning, traffic, engineering, construction, enforcement, communication. So everyone in the room all the time needs to think about Vision Zero. Everyone plays a role making our community safe. We always say this with Vision Zero. We've all heard these statistics. If a car is going 30 miles per hour and hits a pedestrian, 60% of the time they survive. Just 10 miles per hour more, 40 miles per hour, it's a pedestrian, 20% of the time survive. So this is just like a personal messaging campaign. Slow down. Drugs, alcohol, roads don't mix. We know these behavioral factors are one of the primary reasons there's incidents and crashes on our roads. Don't drive distracted. Whether it's a dog or a cup of coffee or a cell phone, there's multiple studies that show drivers talking on cell phones perform worse than drunk drivers. Don't drive distracted. Leadership, safe policies, engineering, community engagement, and data continuing to use Vision Zero as a data-driven approach for transparent decision-making. We use this data to help plan for the future of our system. Another interesting thing is that with what's happening now with COVID-19, there's been, I'm sure you've heard the sexy transportation headlines where communities in Paris, Milan, Oakland, I think, transportation is making the headlines. Communities are shutting down streets, potentially for the long run, to prioritize pedestrians, and bicycle use. Seattle, permanently closing 20 miles of streets to traffic so residents can exercise and bike on them. There's a series of other headlines here that I can share, some interesting articles about related to COVID-19. Bicycling booms during lockdown, but there's a warning from history. Another interesting thing happened in the 70s. There was a bicycling boom as a result of the environmental movement and oil price spikes, but it didn't stick for a variety of complex reasons. But it's an interesting thing that's also happening now. There's a bicycling boom, but will it stick through the pandemic? How cities are clamping down on cars. But also there's this interesting thing that's happening. There's a surge in speeding and reckless driving because there's hardly any cars on the road right now. Anyway, if anybody's interested in any of these headlines, I'd be happy to share the actual article. And one more thank you to the State of Alaska Department of Health and Social Services Physical Activity and Nutrition Unit. They're the granting agency right now to the municipality of Anchorage, and we work closely with their unit. And we have been and we will for the next 3 years to implement Vision Zero throughout the municipality. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the community members on this, on the presentation? Okay, do we have any comments or questions from anyone else in the meeting?
So we had one question during the presentation that I didn't look at until now, and I think it was from Joni. She asked if this was a statewide program. And I don't know of any other communities in Alaska that are implementing Vision Zero. I believe Anchorage is the only one.
Hey, Holly. Sorry, this is Joni. Thank you for taking that question. Actually, I was asking about the data that you were presenting. I was wondering if that data, when you were talking about the numbers earlier, if those were statewide or just Anchorage?
It's Anchorage. It's Anchorage only.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this presentation? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we are down to item 8. Do we have any comments? Open the floor to the committee on comments to committee members.
Guys, this is Todd Van Ho. I have a quick comment.
Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know, since we were talking about the STIP earlier, we have a new STIP out. The STIP 2023 has recently been approved. Along with that, we are currently beginning work on Amendment 1 to the new STIP. And with that, we will be including we are trying to include new starts in our program, which will include some nice projects for the municipality of Anchorage, along with other projects that are of interest to us in the department in the central region.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have, anybody on the committee that has anything else? Okay, do we have any comments from the public or anybody on the meeting right now?
Mr. Chair, if there's nothing else, if no one has a comment, I wanted to put Ms. Underwood on the spot and let folks know that she has announced her intention to retire at the end of June. She's going to get to enjoy a lot of time with her grandchildren, so we will miss her phenomenal level of expertise here at AMATS. We'll figure out how to carry on without her, but I'll let people know we have another a month and a half with her, and that'll be her time to enjoy the retirement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lang. Congratulations to Ms. Underwood. So thank you all for participating, and we're going to adjourn. The time is 3:48 p.m. Thank you all.